Hey, everybody, welcome to the 1776 Syndicate. Thank you for being on board. We've got a light crew tonight tuning in, but I'm going to presume that you're watching these videos and you're gaining knowledge from what we're doing here at the 1776 Syndicate. No rules to the call tonight. It's Rod and I and a couple other guests that have been around for a while, so we'll leave it at that. But look, we have a vast library of content with some wonderful guests that have been on. We had Dr. Ed Berry talking about climate and the Green New Deal and things like that. And, some of the myths and theories that are out there. We've had so many great people. We had Cowboy Bill talking about valor and equine therapy with the veterans. We've had other elected officials. The list goes on. So please pay attention to the past videos. Rod and I talked about this a few weeks ago, looking to fill this spot with the guest, but we thought as we're heading into the general election, maybe we can have some dialogue about what we're seeing out there, what's working, what's not working, and where we think we should be in terms of helping candidates, or if you're a candidate, maybe where you should consider being right now. And we'll throw any extra tools your way that you might need to run into the general. So, Rod, what do you think about that idea?
I think it's great. I think we need, and there's value. There's value in getting outside observations and not having an agenda of people to speak about different things. As we move forward, in fact, just before this Zoom call started, I had a call from a marketing firm wanting me to take a survey. And I've done one, and then I was called a couple of days later by the same one. So the campaigns are gearing up. The machine is moving forward, and they want people's opinion on what resonates with them in marketing strategies. That's what people are fishing for right now. And quite honestly, they should have been fishing for this a month ago, not this soon, not soon to the election. So it's happening, and it's relevant because I'm a voter. Before I'm anything else, I'm a taxpayer and a voter.
Yeah.
And I have opinions, I have observations, and I know you do too as well, Jim. So, and our finger is on the pulse. We know a lot of people. We're in contact with a lot of people, and there's value in what we observe.
Yeah, and I'm going to say this now, but I'm also going to say it again after the election. Okay, if you're running, give it 100%. Don't slow down. I want you to slide into home with your campaign, with your efforts, and utilize every tool you have in your roster. I'm looking at campaign finances for some of the candidates I'm helping. And it's like, okay, we're getting low. Well, what can we do that doesn't cost us any money, right? And I'm going to run into the finish line with every last ounce of energy I have. And by the way, if you don't get elected, don't hang your head low. Pull your boots back on and get ready for the next election, whether that's running again or supporting somebody else. We need everybody in this fight, okay? Not to call a bunch of people out, but we had a lot of people running for school board that didn't win and they've dropped off. Where are you? We need you. So regardless of the outcome of this election, win or lose, stay in the game. We need you. And right here is a good spot for you to be, to either stay educated, know what's going on, or know how you can help other people. We're doing that right here. So stay involved. Don't give up, right?
Jim, on that note, I'm going to interrupt real quick here, because if people do lose the election, they need to, just like you said, not give up. And they need to put that arsenal. We've encouraged people, everyone builds a war chest to go into battle. And then when the battle's over, if you've got signs, when you go pull those signs out after the election's done, keep them. Keep those signs. Don't throw them out. Don't say, well, that's done. Keep them. Keep the stands, the stakes in the ground. Keep all that stuff so you can reuse it. Hard-earned money went into doing that. A lot of donations went into that, and it can be recycled. And even if for whatever reason you opt to not run that campaign again, you can still use those tools. The yard stakes, the little tea stands, that sort of thing. Give them to the Republican Central Committee. Give them to your local committee people, and they will disperse them. It'll be less money someone else has to spend in the next election. So by all means, think forward. Think forward. We've got a lot in front of us. It's not just this fight.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Rod. So I want to talk about some of the things that I'm hearing and seeing right now in the marketplace. I just went to a candidate forum for state legislators and state senators here in Montana. And the biggest topic right now is housing and the homeless, right? Housing and the homeless. And I think that's a nationwide issue. And what's interesting is, the left wants us to fix those problems through government, which is the craziest thought ever. Why do we want government coming in solving local problems? And I'm listening to our conservative candidates going, look, you guys can do a great job here on the local level. The last thing you want happening is the state elected officials to dictate how you're going to run your cities and where people are going. What are your thoughts on that, Rod?
Well, I have a lot of thoughts on that. And we're actually, I'm soliciting a guest for the 76 syndicate here to speak on this issue, an expert from the inside. And if people out here don't know, I actually sat on the Kalispell Mayor's Homeless Task Force. I was a co-chair of that. And we spent a year, and unfortunately, COVID jumped in, and we ended up going on Zoom, and it really curtailed a lot of what we could do. But we got enough information and enough facts to know that, number one, it's not the government's job. It is not. There are 501c3s out there whose job it is. And if government gets involved, it's going to affect the grant money that those 501c3s get. They are set up on the front lines. They know where that money needs to go. They know who it needs to help. They know what their needs are. They know what their lacks are. And they also know that they can do a better job. Mm-hmm. That was abundantly clear. Nobody wanted to hear that message. But I can tell you that the person we have coming on did a very similar study in a large metropolitan area, and he came up with the exact same findings we did here in a little community, county of 100,000. And in a place with 1 million, they have the exact same problems, and they found the exact same solutions that work. And it's not government. It's less government. It's letting those people, empowering those agencies whose mission it is to help and serve the homeless, do it. And the other part is the free market component with housing. It really is supply and demand. It is simple economics. And when you complicate it with emotion, you screw up the paradigm. It's that simple.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think a lot of these problems could be solved on a local level with our county commissioners and our city council members to help lessen the restrictions for builders or how these properties can be used. And that's all happens on a local level. It's just, it boggles my mind how the left will tell you, we want to get rid of big government, but yet the first thing they want to do is turn to the government, turn to our elected officials to fix their problems. I saw an ad the other day, vote Democrat, get rid of big government. Really, if you look at the Republican platform, it's for smaller government. Okay. And this was a point of me wanting to do this call. If you're running for an office with an R next to your name, you need to call out the Democrats. You need to associate your opponent with the Democratic Party and exactly what Joe Biden is doing to this country, not only our economy, but all things within this country. It's an absolute disaster. And you need to ask them, do you follow along or do you agree with what Biden's doing? If they say no, then ask them why they have a D next to their name. Because if they don't believe in what he's doing, then they should be looking at what we're doing and supporting our efforts. Because if you vote for a Democrat, we're going to have more of these same policies trickle down. And that's why I see local advertising that says, get rid of big government, vote Democrat. That's not the way it works, people. And if you're running, you need to be informed and not afraid to push back against the narrative and say, look, do you support Joe Biden or not?
You're absolutely right. It really comes down to that. And even at the local level, I'm looking at where the Democrats, the local level Democrats, the state-run Democrats are getting their money. And it is coming from those larger Democratic pools. It's coming from the supporters of Biden. That's follow the money, follow the purse strings. And that's who they're going to be beholden to. That's how they will vote. That ultimately, Jim, to your point, is how they think. And if we call them out on the rationale of their thinking, they need to switch parties. It's the only logical thing to do. And we can get into a whole other discussion about that aspect, but really it doesn't work. What they're peddling doesn't work. It's snake oil.
I read a quote the other day by Mark Twain. It's easier to fool somebody than to convince them that they've been fooled, right? So to your point, if the policies you don't agree with on the Democratic Party, then switch parties. Don't be fooled over and over again that they have our best interests in mind. You know, and another topic that's been coming up, and this is strictly for Montana, if you're listening from another state, is that we have a pool of money here, over $1 billion. And the discussion is what's going to happen with that money. Well, our constitutional elected officials want to give the money back to the taxpayers. It's their money, right? Whereas some rhino Republicans and the entire Democratic Party say, well, you know, if we let it go, we won't be able to do other programs and we're just going to have to tax them more in the future. And this could go towards this program or that program. The reality is it's constitutional to put it back in the taxpayer's pocket and allow them to decide what to do with that money. And I can't believe that there's pushback on that or delay on that. And it's not an easy pass through, especially with the economy that we're in right now.
Jim, I want to we need to start telling stories that can break this down, because obviously they're not thinking rationally and logically. And I know that a lot of our listeners and viewers are in Montana, and this does affect a great deal of what we've started here with 1776. So I want to spend a moment on that. The taxpayers, you're right, they were overtaxed, overcharged, and it is their money. So let's just put this in perspective. You go to a store, right? And you want to buy a new sofa. And they say, okay, Mr. Kuntz, that new sofa is $2,300. And so I throw the money out there, pay for my sofa, and I walk out, get my receipt in hand. And then they call me up and they say, Mr. Kuntz, we found an error, you know. We ended up with more money in our till at the end of the day, so we've audited all the receipts. Every bank will do this, by the way. We've audited all our receipts. We found that it was you who overpaid. We ended up with $300 extra cash in our till, and it's yours. But we're not going to give it back to you. We're going to keep it so we can buy more sofas, so other people can have a better selection when they come in. So that's just the way it goes. Now, that is exactly what's happened here. The taxpayers have been overcharged, and the money is not coming back because the person who overcharged them wants to use it for other things. That's the Democrat approach.
Yeah.
That's what they want to do with the money.
Yeah.
And you tell me in what world that makes sense, in what world that's fair, in what world that's equitable. It's not.
And what world do common sense adults buy into that, especially ones that are running for an elected office and who in their right mind would vote for somebody that thinks that way? And I think the point of this, Rod, is we're trying to educate people running for office that watch this show or are part of the 76 Syndicate to leverage this against your opponents.
Yes.
Because this is absolute insanity. I just listened to Trump did an interview the other day with a Fox host I'm not really a fan of anymore. But I heard him talking about gas prices, that they're going to be going back up after the election. And he said, you know, in layman's terms, that they're utilizing all of our oil reserves right now to bring down the gas prices. So we feel like the Democrats are doing their job and they rally around their gas prices are coming down and they get more votes. He goes, I promise you, after the election, the gas prices are going to double and triple because those oil reserves will be gone. Right. And that's a scary thought. Again, if you're running against somebody that's got a D next to their name, you need to be educating yourself on these policies and what's happening.
Right. And the other thing is and my illustration with the couch, you know, the sofa is the same with these sorts of things. If you're running and you've got a candidate that's pushing something else, you need to come up with a story, a parable, right? We know how parables work. When you don't understand the principle, you tell a story that illustrates the principle. We need to be better storytellers out there. We can't just talk. Logic and reason is not working to win over those people. It's not. We've had guests on this show that have said it's a cult. And I know people on the left have accused people on the right of being in a cult. But I can assure you, if you do your homework and use the science and the true definitions, the cult is on the liberal end. And they are not listening to reason. But you can illustrate and open their eyes by using stories that they can relate to.
Mhm.
And take it off of the issue and put it onto something that they understand. And if you just have a couple of, this is what Churchill did best. This is what Ronald Reagan did best. This is what some of the best politicians in the world have done, is they find just a quick little story to turn things around. And we've got some very well-read, very literate, well-studied people running for office that are in some hot races right now.
Yeah.
And they need to turn up the heat on their abilities. They need to look for things like this that they can use to give them leverage. If your old tools in the toolbox aren't looking as shiny and as sharp as they once were, you better pull it out and do something different. And that's a method that's tried and true since Jesus walked on the earth.
Rod, I know you've got a couple of topics you want to work through, but I want to stay on my list here. The next thing I had on my list, speaking of tools and shining them up and bringing them out, if you're out campaigning right now and you feel like you're doing everything that you can be doing, maybe you are, but I'd like to refer you back to some of our materials on the back end of 1776 to kind of work your way through that list and see if there's anything that you've overlooked. I know most of us are getting the main ones. We want some signs out there. We've got some mailers, door knockers, and we're knocking on doors, but there's some fine tuning things, even stuff that I've overlooked recently. And all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, what about my phone calls? So right now I'm developing some messaging for my candidates that mid-October, when the mail-in ballots drop, we're going to start our phone calls, right? We're going to open up those phone banks and start reaching out to voters. That's free. Get some friends together, develop a script, and reach out to the voters. Even if it's 10 people a night, 20 people a night, 50 people a night, doesn't matter. That's 10, 20, 30, 50 more voters that you might not have gotten had you not made that free phone call. So don't forget about the phone calls. It's easy to attend events. We're going into the holiday season, lots of Halloween activities, our pre-Thanksgiving stuff well before the election. You've got school activities. Find events where you can go to that are relatively inexpensive and go with intent to be seen, shake some hands, go early, stay late, look around, walk the room. If it's somewhere where you've got to be seated, maybe you're at the rodeo, get up and go to the bathroom a few extra times, even if you don't have to go. It causes you to walk in front of the crowd, be seen, walk back in front of the crowd. Maybe you linger around, the refreshment area or something like that. But go to these events and be seen. Most of them are free. Look in your local papers for things that you can attend. It's gonna be a lot of fall festivals. You can go to the swap meets or, anything on the weekend, produce fairs, stuff like that. Also, make sure all your signs are out. And if they are all out, but you've got a lot of yards with double signs and you got more people that want signs, pull those doubles and spread them out further, because doubles don't do a lot for you. It's nice that somebody puts 2 signs in 1 yard, but that's another yard down the road that you're not in or you could be in. So really utilize your signs appropriately. And don't forget to knock on doors. It's another freebie. And again, if it's 10 a night, that's 10 more than you didn't have until you do it. I've also got on here, look at radio. I was surprised how inexpensive radio is in Montana and in Utah, Idaho. Yeah, if you're in a major state like California, Nevada, Arizona, it's much more expensive. But these smaller Midwestern states, it's inexpensive. So look at local radio. And then finally, look at your white book, or in our case here in Montana, we've got the Mountain Trader and Flathead. Ads in that place are very inexpensive. So look at ways that you can build your name recognition. And by the way, if you're invited to an event, to have a debate with an opponent, I would highly recommend you go, even if it's not in your district or if it's a little bit of a stretch, or they're probably going to skew left on you. I would still go. It gives you an opportunity to maybe sway a few more votes. We just recently had one with the Chamber of Commerce here in Kalispell, and it was pretty decent, but we had a few of our Republican candidates choose not to go because they felt they were well out of the district. Well, what they missed out on was some primetime real estate in the newspaper the next day, because the newspaper did a really nice job covering each elected opponent and what their topics were. And everybody got name recognition except for the people that weren't there. So if you get invited, make your best efforts to be there, because you never know what's going to come out of it. You already know if it's a left-leaning event, they don't like you. Go there equipped. Go there to do a job and hopefully get some press out of it. So, Rod, you know, the other last thing I'm going to say, just because I just finished reading it, I know you read the book Red Handed by Peter Schweitzer. Okay. And look, we could probably talk for a month on this book, but what I liked about it is that it informed me of a position of where a lot of our liberal and Republican elected officials have been sitting in bed with China since the early 70s. It's actually disgusting to see how this book maps out different elected officials over the years have ties to China. Well, what does that have to do with right now? Well, what it has to do with right now is you should be even more motivated to run for office, to take over the swamp, as Trump called it. I love that term, because on both sides of the aisle, we have some terrible people that have been receiving a lot of money for a lot of years. And if you haven't seen the book, I'd highly recommend getting it. It is Red Handed by Peter Schweitzer. So I'll leave it at that. I don't want to dig into the book because there's just too much content there. But I'm just telling you, if you haven't read it, it's time to read it.
I'm gonna jump in on that real quick, just real quick. Okay.
Yeah.
If you don't have a lot of time, and it's loaded with facts, figures, etc. Read the last chapter on universities and how our university system has been literally taken over. You want to know why we have all kinds of problems with diversity, inclusion, equity right now in our culture, why we have all these issues going on with school boards, why we have all the stuff we have going on. It's been orchestrated since the 70s. It started with our universities, and now we've got all those people who have gone through university are now out there administering our schools, running our school systems, and teaching our children. We are getting the product of what China has invested in, and it was by design. So this is not conspiracy theory. This is all fact. So
well,
all you have to do is do your homework.
When I read the line that Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg went to President Xi in a personal meeting and said, "Would you name my child?" Of course, he declined. He said that was too much pressure. But you know, here's somebody that runs one of the largest companies in the world, one of the wealthier men in the world, and went through that system that you're talking about, that university system, and is indoctrinated. And here he is asking the president of a communist country to name his child. Oh, by the way, they were at the White House for a private meeting when he asked that. It's just so. Anyways, read the book. It's crazy.
Yeah. So I'm going to jump back to forums and debates. I'm going to go back into campaign mode here. Okay. So hopefully everyone's going to watch this and get a couple of nuggets out of it because they're there. Again, back into 1776, we've got the power of free. All right. Go through that section when you're looking at budgeting. Power of free. So one of those is public appearances, like you mentioned. Mm-hmm. And this is low-hanging fruit because this wasn't even a debate. This was a forum, and they gave you the questions in advance.
Yeah.
This is as easy as it gets, right? So all you have to do is have a prepared statement. You didn't even have to use all your time. It was so easy. And again, Jim, I was disappointed that more people didn't take advantage of it because it really was the power of free. And I do like that. So the next thing I'm going to mention is business cards. One of the cheapest tools you have are business cards. Just getting your business cards that have your website on it. Okay, your campaign website. You can hand that out at every doorstop. Every time you meet someone, say, just go to my website and it'll be the details. What we know is that when you knock on doors and when you meet people, what you want to do is just make a friend. And if you've made personal contact with somebody, they are more apt to vote for you, period. That's just how it works. That's human psychology. It's sociology. That works. So if you can't go out and knock on every door, but you get your business card in people's hands, if they go to your website, the first thing I would recommend you have is a video greeting where they can look at you up close and personal. Hi, my name's Rod Kuntz. I am running for county commissioner, and this is why. And I mean, quick, simple, succinct. Look people in the eye so that they know that you're there, that you're real, and it's a personal message to them. And make sure you say, and I really appreciate your vote.
Yeah,
I'm
Rod.
for it now, and I need your vote.
Rod, I just wanted to touch on that. I'm glad you said that. most candidates, I think the percentage, like 70% of candidates forget to ask for the vote. Make sure you ask for the vote, and that should also be front and center on your website. Please vote for me. It sounds silly, but you have to ask for the vote. And to your point, video is an incredible idea. It gives a great way to showcase your personality. I just did a series of videos for one of my senator candidates on my iPhone. You can change your iPhone pixels for high quality video. We edited it on the computer real quick and easy. And that's what we're using for our campaign. You don't need to hire a professional company to do it. Something is better than nothing, and use your phone if you have to.
And again, a business card and a website, inexpensive, and you can reach tens of thousands. Yeah, in fact, you can reach millions, right? But if you're going to do anything, do that. I mean, that's the power of free. And you can leverage that even between now and when absentee ballots go out. You have an opportunity here in the next 2 to 3 weeks, okay, to push that. You can do this. Just make it a point and get it done. So that's my shtick on the free. And the last thing, I made a note down here. You had mentioned something earlier tonight, Jim, about people have been lied to, they've been duped, and how are they going to feel when they realize that this was a fraud?
Yeah.
How are they going to feel that they've been duped the whole time? Think about this. I'm going to tell a quick story here. My father was duped by those phone solicitors from Jamaica, right? And we were onto it fairly quick, but they kept on him. They kept on him, and he just kept thinking, well, man, there must be something here. There must be something here. And we all talked to him. All the adult children, my mother said, they're playing you. You're a fool to tell your own father, you are a fool. You are being suckered here. My father had a heart attack, and while the paramedics were on the living room floor resuscitating him, my mother took a phone call from those solicitors. And she said, he's on the floor dead right now. And they're like, oh, well, we can help you. You can, if you get us this money, we'll still be able to make this happen, right? They cleaned my father out. My mother was left with nothing except her own retirement stuff. Cleaned him out. And how foolish, I know where he is now, how foolish you must feel to have been suckered and swindled. And to put it in a personal note, you've been cuckolded. Your party has cheated on you. They have taken your tax dollars and they're paying for somebody else's home. They're paying for somebody else's fine dinner. They're paying for someone else's good quality education for their kids. They're not paying for yours. They're not. You've been swindled. You've been cheated on. If you're a Democrat, you're a liberal, you've been cuckolded. And when you realize it, nobody wants to admit they've been cheated on, right? Oh, not me. It's not happening. All the evidence is right there in front of you. But no, you're not going to do anything. You're going to keep being swindled. So, it's going to happen. People need to wake up, and we need to start banging that drum and just saying, you're going to see the chickens come home to roost. And when it happens, you're not going to be happy.
All right. And I appreciate that story. And the reason why I bring up some of these things that I'm reading and talking about right now is because it will give our candidates ammunition when they're knocking on a door and a Democrat answers it. Say, look, I appreciate your position, but why? Are you aware of? And you can start bringing out some of these facts. And that's why I started reading these different books or different articles. So I know, how to combat that voter that's just a hard D because that's how they voted their whole life, right? And, to be honest, we need to be very sympathetic to them being cuckolded or swindled or lied to, right? Because knowing that nobody wants to admit that, but we can be understanding and say, look, I realize maybe you weren't a fan of our last Republican president. Maybe he wasn't a fit for you, but you have to understand what's been going on in the Democratic Party with our candidates. If you can't see it with Biden, you'll probably never see it, So I think we need to be sympathetic when we're knocking on those doors, especially when we have somebody on the left that answers.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, the other thing I wanted to bring up, and this is probably my most important point that I wanted to bring out tonight, is it's one thing to try and win over our opponents. right? Those that are typically leaning left. We obviously want to do that for their benefit, not for our benefit, but for their benefit. We want them to be awake, right? So, but the most important thing that we can do, if you look at the last county from the last presidential election, the U.S. county map, it's red. It's red all over. We have enough Republicans everywhere we live in America to take over this country. We do. The problem is that they have not traditionally in the past gone to the polls and actually voted. We need to mobilize that base. So I think, number one, I'm going to call out churches. Our churches have been lied to and swindled about what they can say and speak to from the podium. They have been lied to about their rights with religious freedom and their 501c3s. They can have an opinion on moral issues, on ethical issues, and they can have an opinion. Okay? Now, they can't be hanging banners up inside their sanctuaries and that sort of thing promoting candidates, but they can speak up, and they need to. They need to. So if they're not, and I don't imagine, because they haven't for so long, it's going to take a whole education effort to get that to change, but they haven't. But where are the people? Where are those conservative people? They go to church on Bible studies on Wednesday nights. They go to church on Sundays. And I'll tell you what, here's your power of free. If you want to market and market effectively, you get yourself a big banner. Instead of just standing out on a street corner, you go stand out in front of the busiest conservative churches in your community, and you drum up their support. And I actually had a big sign I'd make, a big banner. And this is what it was: the soul of our nation and the lives of our children are at stake. Vote for me, or vote Republican. The soul of our nation and the lives of our children are at stake. These people need to know that and get out and vote. And they're already there. They're probably already registered, but they just don't show up when it has to happen. People need to get off their butts. They need to get off their couch. They need to get off their pew, and they need to do this. There's too much at stake. And I'm getting kind of wound up here, but that's the power of free. If you're going to have people go stand on street corners for you and do that, stand out in front of the churches, because those are your voters. Those are your supporters sitting in there. We just need to get them to go up and do what's right.
Rod, it's such a good point. I was just thinking, how about just a sign that says, vote for life, pro-life candidate so-and-so, right? In my case, John Fuller. Vote for life, pro-life candidate John Fuller. You don't have to say anything else. If you're a Christian, follower of God, believer in the Constitution, protect every life, right? Vote for life. Enough said. So what a great idea. I'm probably going to take that one from you. Thank you.
Well, I hope all of our conservative candidates take that one. There are some busy churches. We've got mega churches in all across Montana. I'm not going to name them. Most of you know what they are if you follow what's going on out there. We've got people, but they're not going to be preaching this from the pulpit. But by golly, you can stand out on a public sidewalk right where all those people are coming in and out. Station a couple of people out there, get your message out, and tell people, I need you to vote. I need you to vote.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Great idea.
That's all I've got. That was my big idea today. I probably ought to put it on the back of 1776 in our Power of Free. Should update that.
Well, look, if you can't tell by this phone call or discussion between Rod and I, we're fired up. We're excited for this election season coming to an end here in November. We're 43 days out as of today. And we believe in our candidates. We believe in the work that we've done this year. We believe in the resources that we've given. But we also believe in not giving up. And like I said earlier, sliding into home. Let us be a resource for you. Utilize our tools. And let's work together to win this election. Let's have that red wave that everybody's talked about. Complacency will be our biggest enemy. If we keep talking about a red wave, people aren't going to vote because they're going to think, we got it. This is a red wave. We need every voter, because the reality is we have to count on them cheating. And if we've got to win by more than 15% because they're cheating 10% of the votes, We need everybody. So use this call as something to fire you up. Rod and I are offering our time and energy if you need to reach out to us and need any extra help, any ideas, suggestions. We're here for you. Let's win this election. So I'm going to close with that. Rod, any final thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. Next week we have Paul Green. He is running for Montana House of Representatives in District 41 in Eastern Montana. And this is a tough one. This is an area that has been controlled. It's off the Crow Reservation and the Northern Cheyenne Reservation. It's been controlled by Democrats for years and years. So he's got an uphill battle. And I point blank have asked him, talk about what your strategy is to win over the reservation, to get that. They should have been voting Republican the whole time. It stymies me that they don't. But it's like, what are you doing? What's your strategy? What can you share with other people? How are you approaching this? Because I think it's relevant to everybody, and especially in that part of the state. So that's what's coming up next go round. And the other thing is, I think that you and I, Jim, probably ought to do some more of these. I've been thinking about it, and sometimes what we need is just a recon report.
Yeah, good, good
a
idea.
lay of the land. A lay of the land. What are we seeing? What are we reading? What are we picking up from our social? You're connected to people all over the country. I follow people all over the country. We have our finger on the pulse, and we've got some things we should pull together on a more regular basis. So maybe we could do some talking heads some more.
Great idea. Yeah, I attended the Montana Farmers Union meeting the other night just because I wanted to be more educated. That's a whole other group, whole other topic. So good idea, Rod. Look, in closing, I encourage everybody to get out there, get it done, reach out to us if you need help. Thank you for being a part of the 1776 Syndicate. Take care.
Thank you. Good night.